Workers at the Toronto Transit Commission could soon be subject to random alcohol and drug testing at work. The TTC board approved the change to its fitness for duty policy in October 2011, and the logistics for implementing the policy are currently underway. Brad Ross is the TTC's Executive Director of Corporate Communications. Referencing a fatal crash in 2011 in which a bus driver was found in possession of marijuana, Ross says having a random testing program in place may help to reduce cases involving employee impairment.
In 2008, the new fitness for duty policy that included alcohol and drug testing was brought to the Commission, and it was approved except for the random alcohol and drug testing aspect. All the other aspects of our fitness for duty policy, pre-employment, as a post-treatment, post-incident, reasonable cause, all of that was approved. Following that fatal crash, we did bring back the recommendation to introduce the random element, and that's what we're in the process of implementing now.
Union leaders have criticized plans to randomly test workers for substance use, saying that it's invasive and infringes on their privacy rights. Local 113 of the Amalgamated Transit Union that represents TTC workers says the plan is unnecessary and they will fight back if need be.
An oral swab test and a breathalyzer test is dignified, if you will. Nobody is being asked to provide a urine sample.
Bob Kinnear, president of ATU Local 113, says current drug testing technologies are ineffective, and he says the TTC should be focusing on deeper issues.
If someone goes on vacation 2 weeks ago and they happen to smoke a joint, that's none of my business. I want to ensure that they're safe to operate a public transit vehicle when they report to work. That's our concern, not what they may or may not have done 2 weeks ago. And this sort of testing, that's all that it does. There are many, many other tests that are much less invasive to determine whether somebody is coherent enough to operate their vehicle.
The issue of random drug and alcohol testing in Canadian workplaces has come into the spotlight more recently, with 2 high-profile cases currently before the Supreme Court of Canada. Suncor Energy in Alberta and Irving Pulp and Paper in New Brunswick both want their employees to undergo random tests, but the Communications, Energy and Paper Workers Union that represents them is fighting against it, and arbitration hearings are currently taking place. Sherrard Cou's lawyer Catherine Ford says the Supreme Court's decision will significantly impact whether random drug and alcohol testing programs have a future in Canada.
I think the interesting thing will be what happens with drug testing over the next few years, because certainly we've seen that random alcohol testing in safety-sensitive positions in an inherently dangerous workplace, depending on what the Supreme Court of Canada says, but that may be permitted. If we start to see drug testing where the science of the test gets better, it may be that we are able to random test for drugs in safety-sensitive positions, again, in those inherently dangerous workplaces, but it's really going to depend on the technology, and it will be interesting in places like the oil sands, for instance, where I think it's a huge priority for employers and an important issue, to see if we start to see more development. Those organizations may be putting more resources into the development of these types of drug testing technologies. So it remains to be seen what happens on that from that perspective.